afternoon. Welcome everyone to our third show and tell of Project Alpha. We are looking at ways to modernize, improve, and hopefully transform the local authority building control services for the customers and for us as surveyors who work in the service. I am Joanna Pilsniak. I am the Principal Building Control Surveyor and Team Leader here at City of London Building Control. We are sad to say goodbye to one of our key members of the project team, Claire Taylor. She has moved on to the Planning Inspectorate, so we obviously wish her all the very best. On the left-hand side of our slides, you can now see the themes which are coming up in today's workshop. We're going to be looking at some of the early analysis of the different building control forms, and this forms part of our low-hanging fruits work stream. We will then be moving on to reviewing the analysis of the partner surveys from the Alpha kickoff, and this will be themed around the systems and processes that we use. We will also be getting some updates from the metrics work stream. And finally, we will be looking at insights from further analysis of partners' building control website pages and the customer experience journeys within those pages. But first, I am really pleased to welcome Unboxed, our research and development partner, who will be kicking off today with a workshop with their team. We are looking forward to be working with them on Project Alpha, and I will now pass on to Dalil, who will take us through some of the early analysis of the initial notices.
Thanks, Joanna. What we did here is we reviewed the RBCA forms. Looks like every registered building control approver, they use their own form and they use their own layout. There's a template from the government called Form 1. The content of these forms all match the content that legislation require, which Form 1, but there's no single standard format for all of them. This creates variation in style and layout. The ease of locating required details for the building control officers might be not standard, so they need to jump from one form to another. Also, as I mentioned earlier here, all of these forms that we reviewed, they include the mandatory information required by legislation. Some forms closely align with Form 1, which is the government template. Others use mixed format. Some of them use tables, others use narrative sections, and hybrid between these two models. This might make the variation harder for the building officer who reviewing these forms. Form with clear numbering and logic grouping offer high usability and allow rapid compliance check. Form with no standard layout and dense presentation slow down the review and increase the risk of oversights. This is the early analysis of this form. Soon we will go and do better deep research on these form and layout. And now passed on to Catherine.
Thanks, Dalil. Okay, so we did an early survey at the start of this Alpha project where we asked partners to respond on a number of questions around how they currently process applications and what systems they use. I think we went over that in an earlier show and tell. So this first piece of analysis we did was a kind of thematic analysis where we had a look at how many of our partners are doing manual processing for different types of tasks. As you can see, overwhelmingly, manual processing is proving to be the dominating approach, and one or two are slightly more matured in terms of their automation, but on the whole, mostly it's manual processing or semi-manual processing. Another one that's interesting to look at here is the building safety levy processes. You can see there that whilst all of them are kind of ready in terms of knowing who's going to do the collecting and monitoring, fewer of the partners, in fact, almost none of the partners are really entirely sure on whether they're ready for the levy and know what system they're definitely going to be using. And that's a problem that we know is going to be worrying councils across the country as we move closer to October 2026 when the levy is introduced. So on this slide, we can see another analysis, a more comparative analysis, which is looking at, again, what's manual, what's semi-manual, or what's a mixed route. And I think what's interesting here is that we can see that partners use a variety of forms and platforms with some overlap, but there's no universal standard. And in terms of levy roles and systems, again, well, as we saw in the last one, there's not really a clear system there. Just Bracknell Forest seem to have something sorted there as a standard provider. So overall, not a lot of consistency, and as Dalil, this linked into the things that we were looking at with Dalil, we can see there are lots of manual processing with initial notices, reversions, and so on and so forth. That's the RBCA forms, and of course that's our low-hanging fruit where we hope that we can potentially make some efficiency or time savings for officers. So now I'm going to pass over to Jordan, who's going to take us through some of the work we've been doing on the metrics workstream, and in particular looking at the timesheets that the team have been building and developing so that we can get some really good A/B results later on in our alpha project.
Thanks, Catherine. So building on that previous work, particularly in the workshops, we looked at some of the roles and tried to narrow down some of the main roles that building control do. We really highlighted that we wanted to narrow them down so we could assign certain tasks to each. For when we develop these timesheets, we want to be able to streamline our data collection. Quite a lot of this was the focus on honing those into these particular roles. So we identified head of service, surveyors, and technical support as being the main ones that we wanted to collect data for. Each of these, we've assigned tasks that are commonly associated with each of these roles, and we've run that by our partners to see which best suit each of them, which are still being checked over and are still open to interpretation and comment from other councils. We wanted to make sure that these timesheets are clear and concise data. We're doing that by making sure that the times are logged in 5-minute intervals. By doing that, we can create a cleaner and concise collection of times that we can then put into more clear outcomes in data performance. The impacts of being able to collect this data clearly and concisely, particularly through the roles and the tasks that each of these roles are associated with, is that we can have clear data-driven insights for where we need to improve our services for building control and which particular task can really be improved by building upon that. Additionally, we looked at some of the proposals and some of the main themes that came up in the previous workshops. We really wanted to highlight some of the larger changes that building control really needed to focus on when we're building these new services. Mainly, some of the themes that came up were readdressing some of the issues with charging for services, the timelines of payments and when payments should be received by building control, and currently where the timelines sit, and bringing them in line with other services that we have across the council. We've made a document compiling these lists of changes that will be made available to everyone as well. Thank you.
It is back to me. What we did, we continued reviewing the website, the partner's website. This falls under the data standardization. So we look at these websites and see how they differ from each other. Trying to duplicate or see how the user journey looks like when they try to find the fees or apply for building control applications. We measure this, how many clicks the user will need to find specific information, such as mentioned fees or information, or applying for specific type of building control. This will fall under metrics. You see some links here in the website, how a page goes to another. Sometimes might be complicated, sometimes might be user-friendly journey and easy to follow and easy to find information. We will be continuing doing this for further deeper analysis as well. And now pass to Catherine for the last slide.
Thanks, Dalil, and we'll also be collecting some metrics from that that we'll be discussing a bit later today in the workshop. Thanks very much. That's the roundup of our work today for this show and tell. You can see on this slide we've got our links there. Please do hook in with us on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn, and you can always drop us an email if you want to know more. digitalbuildingcontrol@lambeth.gov.uk, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.